All right, Seedfolks, chapters 5 through 9. This chapter is called Leona. Mama believed in doctors, but not Granny, not even if they were black. No, ma'am. I grew up in her house back in Atlanta. She drank down a big cup of goldenrod tea every morning with a nutmeg floating in it and declared she didn't need no other medicine. Dr. Bates tried to sell her his iron pills and told her straight out, that tea of hers would raise her blood pressure and burst her heart. He passed away that very same summer. Next doctor said it would give her brain fever. He died on his 50th birthday, I believe, right during the party. Had him a real nice funeral later. Granny lived to 99 by her count. She kept a scrapbook with the obituaries of all the doctors she outlived and could recite the list of names by heart, like a chapter out of Genesis. We took to going to their funerals right regular over the years. She always laid some goldenrod on their graves. I was thinking about her one day, walking home from the grocery store on Gibb Street. Then I came to the vacant lot and saw three people in different parts of it. I thought maybe they were looking for money. Turned out they had shovels, not metal detectors. When I saw they had little gardens going, I said to myself, I believe I'll plant me a patch of goldenrod right here. There was a man standing and watching from the sidewalk and a girl looking down out of a window. There were probably lots of folks who'd want to grow something just like me. Then I studied all the trash on the ground. Don't know why anyone called that lot vacant. The garbage was piled high as your waist, some of it from the neighborhood, and some dropped off by outside people. The ones who don't want to pay at the dump or got dangerous chemicals or think we're such slobs down here, we won't mind another load of junk. We can't get City Hall to pick up our trash, but we got it delivered just fine. The smell's enough to curl up a crocodile's nose, especially in the summer. The gardeners had made some trails through it, but I knew precious few would join them until that mess was hauled away. Looking at it, I knew this wasn't a job for no wheelbarrow. This was a job for the telephone. I marched on home. I've got 2 kids in a high school that has more guns than books, so I know all about complaining to officials and such about things that need changing. Next morning was Monday. At 9 o'clock, I drank me a tall glass of water. I knew I'd be having to say the same thing to 15 or 20 government folks. I put Miles on the CD player and stretched out on the bed. Might as well be comfortable when you're on hold. Then I opened the phone book and started in dialing. You ever watch a sax player close? They push down a key, and way at the other end of the instrument something moves. That's what I was looking for, the key that would make that trash disappear. I tried the city of Cleveland, then Cuyahoga County, then the state of Ohio, and finally the U.S. government. 6.5 hours later, I found out the lot was owned by the city. But the people running Cleveland don't usually come down here, unless they take a wrong turn on the freeway. You can't measure the distance between my block and City Hall in miles. Just the same, I kept working on it the next day. That Citizens Information Center told me to call the Public Health Department. They sent me to someone else. They're all trained to be slippery as snakes, and to be out to lunch, to not return messages, and to keep folks on hold till they get gray and die. I had the feeling I was getting farther from the key I needed instead of closer. Then on the 3rd day, I thought on it. When people talk to you on the phone, you're nothing but a voice. And when you're on hold, you're not even that. I had to make myself real to them. That morning, I took a bus downtown and walked into Public Health Department. Told about the trash all over again to this dolled-up receptionist. Let her see me up close and personal and hear me loud and clear. She just told me to sit down with the others waiting. I did. Then I opened up the garbage bag I'd picked up and the lot on my way. The smell that came out of it made you think of hog pens and maggots and kitchen scraps from back when Nixon was president. It was amazing how quick people noticed it, including that receptionist. And even more amazing was how quick I was called in to have a meeting with someone. I was definitely real to them now. I brought that bag along with me into the meeting to keep it that way. Next chapter is called Sam. I saw people on the sidewalk watching something. I crossed to join them, like a cat who smells herring. Men in jumpsuits from the jail, I think, were clearing the lot. Unbelievable! The woman beside me told me the land was for anyone who wanted a garden. Even more unbelievable. The word paradise came out of my mouth without thinking. The woman looked at me strange. It's a hobby with me, studying words. I looked at the 3 walls surrounding the lot, then at a garden coming up beautiful, planted there close to the sidewalk. Paradise comes from a Persian word. It means walled park. I told the woman that. This time she gave me a little smile. I smiled back. That's my occupation. You've seen fishermen mending the rips in their nets. That's what I do, only with people. I used to try to patch up the whole world. For 36 years I worked for different groups promoting world government, setting up conferences on pacifism, raising money, stuffing envelopes. Not that I've given up the fight, I've just switched battlefields, from the entire planet to this corner of Cleveland. Sometimes I think I've actually had more effect on the world since I retired. What do? I smile at people, especially black people and the ones from different countries. I get them looking up at me instead of down or off to the side. I start up conversations in lines and on the bus and with cashiers. People see I'm friendly no matter what they've heard about whites or Jews. If I'm lucky, I get them talking to each other, sewing up the rips in the neighborhood. I hadn't had a garden since I was a kid. I wanted one now, only this time I was 78 to be exact, and in no condition to dig up the soil. So I hired a teenager, Puerto Rican, who said he knew where he could get a shovel. He knew he'd have to do a good job to be paid. He worked that soil until it flowed through your fingers like silk. I paid him well and offered him a row. He wanted to grow marijuana to sell, a real businessman. We discussed this. We finally compromised on pumpkins. After I explained how much he could probably get for them at Halloween, not to mention the advantages of staying out of jail. He was new to the neighborhood. We chatted back and forth, squatting there in the cool of the evening, planting our seeds, a few other people working, a robin singing out strong all the while. It seemed to me that we were, in truth, in paradise, a small garden of Eden. In the Bible, though, there's a river in Eden. Here we had none. Not even a spigot anywhere close by. Nothing. People had to lug their own water in buckets or milk jugs or soda containers. Water is heavy as bricks, trust me, and new seeds have to be always moist. And in all of June, it didn't rain but 4 days. The result? People bent over like coolies, walking sometimes 3 or 4 blocks, a gallon jug in each hand, complaining all the time about the water. Mine I hauled by a 3rd grader with a wagon. The contest I started came later. Water aside, we had other problems. People in the garden told friends and relatives. The lot was big. There was plenty of room. But when newcomers joined, at least at the beginning, they could usually get a spot near people they knew. On Saturday, when the garden was fullest, I stood up a minute to straighten my back. And what did I see? With a few exceptions, the blacks on one side, the whites on another, the Central Americans and Asians toward the back. The garden was a copy of the neighborhood. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. A duck gives birth to a duckling, not a moose. Each group kept to itself, spoke its own language, and grew its own special crops. One man even put up a pole and flew the Philippine flag above his plot. Then there was the garbage. A few well-brought-up people in the buildings around the lot still used it for a trash can. Just couldn't get out of the habit. They emptied their ashtrays out the windows and tossed out all sorts of stuff. One day a bottle came down like a meteor. A man picked it up and threw it back, straight through the window it came out of. A minute later, 5 more flew out. Next, I thought to myself, come gunshots. Instead, thank God it was only shouting. That crazy homeless man, the one who used to sleep on the broken down couch, he also missed the lot being a dump. He showed up, saw his couch had been taken, and started ripping out people's plants. The police had to come. Some people started worrying, looking ahead to ripe beans and tomatoes, and thinking about strangers coming in. That week, a man put chicken wire around his garden 5 feet high, complete with a little gate and padlock. The week after that, someone built a board fence. Then came the first "Keep Out" sign. Then the crowning achievement, barbed wire. God, who made Eden, also wrecked the Tower of Babel by dividing people. From paradise, the garden was turning back into Cleveland. Okay, this chapter is called Virgil. My father, he always has a smile on his face and a plan moving in his head. We were standing there together on the sidewalk while the men were clearing the lot. I was watching the rats running for their lives. They were shooting off every which way. A couple of dealers came over, the ones always bragging about how bad they are. A rat ran right up one of their legs. The dude screamed just like women do with a mouse in cartoons, only louder. Shook his leg like his toe was being electrocuted. That rat flew off and dove down a storm drain. I looked at my father. That's when I saw that he hadn't paid the rat any mind. Hadn't even turned his head. His eyes were stuck completely on the garden land being uncovered. He had a 2-foot wide smile on his face. My father drove a bus back in Haiti. Here he drives a taxi. That night he drove himself way across town to borrow 2 shovels from a friend of his. The next morning was the first day without school. I was done with the 5th grade forever. I'd planned on sleeping till noon to celebrate. But when it was still half dark, my father shook my shoulder. School was over, but that garden was just starting. We walked down and picked out a place to dig up. The ground was packed so hard, the tip of my shovel bounced off it like a pogo stick. We tried 3 spots till we found one we liked. Then we walked back and forth, picking out broken glass like chickens pecking seeds. After that, we turned the soil. We were always digging up more trash, bolts and screws and pieces of brick. That's how I found the locket. It was shaped like a heart and covered with rust, with a broken chain. I got it open. Inside was this tiny photo of a girl. She was white with a sad-looking face. She had on this hat with flowers on it. I don't know why I kept it instead of tossing it on our trash pile. It seemed like hours and hours before we had the ground finished. We rested a while. Then my father asked if I was ready. I thought he meant ready to plant our seeds, but instead we turned another square of ground, then another after that, then 3 more after that. My father hadn't been smiling to himself about some little garden. He was thinking of a farm, to make money. I'd seen a package of seeds for pole beans and hoped that that's what we'd grow. They get so tall that the man in the picture was picking them way at the top of a ladder. But my father said no. He was always asking people in his cab about how to get rich. One of them told him that fancy restaurants paid lots of money for this baby lettuce, smaller than the regular kind, to use in rich folks' salads. The fresher it was, the higher the price. My father planned to pick it and then race it right over in his cab, running red lights if he had to. Lettuce seeds are smaller than sand. I felt embarrassed planting so much ground. No one else's garden was a quarter the size of ours. Suddenly I saw Miss Fleck. I hardly recognized her in jeans. She was the strictest teacher in Ohio. I'd had her for 3rd grade. She pronounced every letter and every word and expected you to talk the same way. She was tall and even blacker than my father. No slouching in your seat in her class or any kind of rudeness. The other teachers seemed afraid of her too. She walked over just when we finished planting. "Well, Virgil," she said, "you seem to have claimed quite a large plantation here." That's just what I was afraid of hearing. I looked away from her down at our sticks. We'd put him in the ground and run string around him, cutting up our land into 6 pieces. I didn't know why till my father stepped forward. "Actually, madam, only this very first area here is ours," he said. He had on his biggest smile. He must have remembered her. "The others we have planted at the request of relatives who have no tools or live too far." "Really now?" said Miss Fleck. "Yes, madam," said my father. He pointed at the closest squares of land. "My brother Antoine, my auntie Anne-Marie." My eyes opened wide. They both lived in Haiti. I stared at my father, but he just kept smiling. His fingers pointed farther to the left. "My Uncle Felipe, he lived in New York. My wife's father, he died last year, and her sister." My mother didn't have any sisters. I looked at my father's smiling face. I'd never watched an adult lie before. "And what did your extended family of gardeners ask you to plant?" said Miss Fleck. "Lettuce," said my father. "All lettuce." "What a coincidence," she said back. She just stood, then walked over to her own garden. I'm pretty sure she didn't believe him, but what principal could she send him to? That lettuce was like having a new baby in the family, and I was like its mother. I watered it in the morning if my father was still out driving. It was supposed to come up in 7 days, but it didn't. My father couldn't figure out why. Neither of us knew anything about plants. This wrinkled old man in a straw hat tried to show me something when I poured out the water. He spoke some language, but it sure wasn't English. I didn't get what he was babbling about till the lettuce finally came up in wavy lines and bunches instead of straight rows. I'd washed the seeds out of their places. The minute it came up, it started to wilt. It was like a baby always crying for its milk. I got sick of hauling bottles of water in our shopping cart, like I was some old lady. Then the heat came. The leaves shriveled up. Some turned yellow. That lettuce was dying. My father practically cried, looking at it. He'd stop by in his cab when he could with 2 5-gallon water containers riding in the back instead of passengers. Then bugs started eating big holes in the plants. I couldn't see anyone buying them from us. My father had promised we'd make enough money to buy me an 18-speed bike. I was counting on it. I'd already told my friends. My father asked all his passengers what to do. His cab was like a library for him. Finally, one of them told him that spring or fall was the time to grow lettuce, that the summer was too hot for it. My father wasn't smiling when he told us. I couldn't believe it. I stomped outside. I could feel that 18-speed slipping away. I was used to seeing kids lying and making mistakes, but not grown-ups. I was mad at my father. Then I sort of felt sorry for him. That night I pulled out the locket. I opened it up and looked at the picture. We'd studied Greek myths in school that year. In our book, the goddess of crops and the earth had a sad mouth and flowers around her, just like the girl in the locket. I scraped off the rust with our dish scrubber and shined up that locket as bright as I could get it. Then I opened it up just a crack. Then I whispered, "Save our lettuce," to the girl. The next chapter is called Say Young. Always many people in my house when I was young. 5 sisters, many friends. I always liked being with people. Then I leave Korea with my husband to come to America for work. We buy dry cleaning shop, live next block. Dry cleaning shop better than restaurant. Don't have to speak English too much and only work 6 days. We work together 7 until 7. At night, I sew alterations. We save all 4 children's college so they can have easier life. But no children come. Very many years we hope, but still alone. Then my husband died, heart attack. 37 years old. Now all alone except for friends. I hire woman to work in shop. One afternoon when she gone, a man walk into shop with coat to clean. Undercoat he has gun. He take out money, then push me down. He yelling at me, very bad words. Then he kick me, break cheekbone. Then he kick me again, head hit hard against wall, and I go to sleep. When I wake up, I no more like to be with people like before. Afraid of everyone, all the time. I don't leave apartment for 2 months. Neighbor buys food for me at store. I don't open door if someone knocks, even friends, only for food. Afraid to walk on sidewalk with people. I hire Korean men to run dry cleaning shop. I never go in. That happened 2 years ago. Very slowly I get better. I go to store and buy my food, but very fast. Then not so fast. Very lonely, but still afraid. Then I passed by garden. Vietnamese girl was working there, picking beautiful lima beans. A man and a woman on other side talking over row of corn. I hear man say his wife give him hoe for birthday. I want to be with people again. Next day I go back and dig small garden. Nobody talked to me that day. But just be near people, nice people, feel good, like next to fire in winter. Very hot and humid in July. Most people come in early after work when air is cool. People watering and pulling weeds. Even if don't talk to anyone, sound of people working almost like conversation all around. People visit friends. I listen to voices, feel very safe. Then man walk over and ask about peppers. I grow hot peppers like in Korea. First time that someone talked to me, I was so glad. Have trouble talking. That man named Sam, he's American man and talk to everyone, very smart. When people all the time complain about carrying water, he start contest. He said how adults couldn't solve problem, let children try. He say he give $20 to child under 12 who has best idea. He write this on paper and nail paper to post close to sidewalk. 1 week to contest. Kids out of school, walk around, see paper, tell friends. On Saturday, everyone bring plans. Sam has wooden box. Let each one stand on it and tell idea. One girl live in apartment by garden. She say she'll open window, people give her containers, she'll fill them with water. Then mother interrupt, say water bill too much. Boys say use water from fire hydrant. Another say run hose from Lake Erie. Many ideas. Sam explained how much money each one cost. Then little black girls say to let rain from spouts go into garbage cans. Everyone look. 3 different spouts on walls of building around garden. Just have to take off bottom part of spout. Sam give girl $20. Everyone clap. Other people give money to buy garbage cans. Next day, thunderstorm. Cans almost full. Little girl there, very proud. Someone bring 3 old pots to scoop water out of cans. Hard to pour into narrow containers. I quick go to store. Buy 3 funnels to make much easier filling containers. I put 1 by each garbage can. That day I see man use my funnel, then woman, then many people. Feel very glad inside. Feel part of garden, almost like family.